we knew we had something on some of those early user tests where you end the call. And like I said, it was very abrupt and people would literally jump. They'd be like, where'd they go? I was just talking to this hologram in the room and they're just like, they're gone, poof. That's weird. I'm like, okay, we need to add some features here to make that not so abrupt. But it really proved the point of we did find something different. We did create that feeling of togetherness.
In the world of technology, heroes are everywhere. They're overcoming disruption, delivering sustainable outcomes, and fearlessly forging the future to solve what's next. Join me, Ed McNamara, as we meet the people and businesses driving change in our constantly disruptive world. This is Innovation Heroes, a podcast brought to you by SHI. Some people set out to innovate. For others, innovation finds them. That's exactly what happened to Elizabeth Bieniek. In 2015, Elizabeth's career took an unexpected turn when she found herself thrust into a new role at her company. She was assigned the task of identifying the next big disruption in video collaboration technology. Then came the really hard part. She had to figure out how to build it. That technology is Webex Hologram. Released in 2021, Webex Hologram was the first real-time photorealistic holograph tool to transform how businesses collaborate and communicate in the digital age. The technology combines augmented reality and real-time 3D holographic projection to create lifelike representations of meeting participants. It breaks down geographical barriers and allows teams to collaborate as if they were in the same room, enhancing connection and creativity while maintaining the nuances of in-person communication. Today, Elizabeth uses the lessons she learned from leading the development of this revolutionary technology to help other businesses innovate in their own industry. Hi, Elizabeth, and welcome to Innovation Heroes.
Hi, Ed. I love talking about this topic.
Awesome. It's something that we've all learned a lot more about in the last few years. But take me back to 2015. You know, what were you doing at Cisco, and how did you get started on Webex Hologram?
Yeah, I was actually working in strategic partnerships. So I was focused on some of the big alliances that our company had with other large tech giants and looking at how can we do things better together. But my then boss at the time oversaw all of our corporate strategy for this organization. And basically he and I had an argument one morning. We're grabbing a cup of coffee and I just was feeling a little cheeky and started asking like, why do we do our strategy this way? It's too short term. We're not going outside. Like, why do we do this? Can't we do this better?
Right.
And he flipped the script on me a little bit and kind of gave me the challenge of, well, if you're going to bring up a problem, bring up a solution. So if you think you can do it better, show me. And we had a good relationship. So he gave me a little runway to go check it out.
You know, when we're talking about, office collaboration tools, it struck me that this was 2015 when everybody's, usually in the office or you're dialing into conference calls. Like when you went to develop this technology, it wasn't like we had a couple of years of all sitting there using various technologies for remote conferencing. Like, do you think that was an advantage in some ways that you didn't have all of this user experience that you had to kind of live up to or judge yourself against?
Absolutely. I think the naivety for myself and just for the user base was both a plus in this scenario. It was still the era where most people were in the office. Most of the remote collaboration was done with people who were geographically separated. So you're working with your partners or your extended team in a different country or geography. And audio calls were the status quo. We were really pushing video conferencing at the time, and that was the focus for Cisco Webex. But there was still a large percentage of people that didn't turn on video, even when that feature was available. So audio was king.
So in terms of holographic video, you go on this journey to find the next big collaboration technology. And did you even know it was going to be holographic? How did you get to that point?
Yeah, I started with a really open charter of what should we be looking at for the future. And I wanted to get out of the normal corporate strategy approach, which is looking at your tangential improvements in the next 2-3 years and really think what's really out there? What's the fringe tech right now? If I'm looking 15 years from now, how I think collaboration should be? If I start from that perspective, what changes? And I spent a lot of time getting outside of our proverbial and physical four walls and going to a lot of conferences, going to startup accelerators and incubators, doing all the conferences that had the expo floors that you could go and try the demos, and anybody from anywhere, I'll try your demo. And that really did start pointing me towards augmented reality specifically, of just seeing a lot of clunky but great potential on the tech. I think what was really interesting about it is the amazing thing about augmented reality versus virtual reality. I mean, both of them have their own applications and both are amazing in their own way. But with augmented reality, it's the fact that you're not blocking out your physical world, you're enhancing your physical world. I think that's what was most compelling of putting on a headset, and then it's not only do I see everything I just did, but now I see more. And it kind of opens up that possibility in your mind of, whoa, I can have information at my fingertips. I can augment my experience. I can curate my experience to be basically a superhuman here. I can add more to this. And that, for somebody that works in innovation and is excited about possibility, that's huge because your mind just starts going.
Right.
And I talk a lot about the human-centric side of technology, the people-first approach. And for me, it was really about what's the experience you're trying to create. This was pre-pandemic. This was before video conferencing became the status quo for everybody. And it was still, like I said, a lot of people didn't want to turn on the video. But
Right.
we're all trying to solve this problem of, if you're here in San Jose and you've got a partner in Norway, how are you
Right.
having that conversation and feeling like you're connected? That's hard on an audio conference. And video improves it some, but you still have that awareness that I'm here, you're there, and there's a screen in between us. Is there a way to bring people together? And that's what augmented reality really had the potential to break down that perceived barrier. I started, like I said, honing in on augmented reality, and I had those conversations with my boss, and he agreed, like, yes, this definitely has the potential to disrupt. Let's go deep here. And so I started doing more research in that space, and let's just start there.
So clearly you had to build a team. Like, what was your strategy there? You've talked about something that's called good peopling. What does that mean, and how did you build that out?
Good peopling is the phraseology my husband and I use every time we're talking about this, because, you always end up chatting a bit about your work scenarios and what you're facing. And we would have our afternoon break and just kind of talk through some of the stuff. And we just started using that phraseology of, like, well, that's just bad peopling. And then another time somebody else would do something, well, that's good peopling. And so
Right.
it was our way to describe of, is the leader of that team or organization or effort, are they taking full advantage of the people that are on it? And are they putting things together in a common sense way that people want to rally behind that cause? Are they just being a jerk?
Right.
Are they putting
Right.
people first? And like I said, I'm very big on putting people first. Everything is people-centric. Life is driven by relationships. Technology is driven by relationships. So anytime that you're thinking about tech first, people second, it's not going to work. So when you're focused on people first, how does the tech support that? That's going to work. And so that's how the good peopling came about.
And I guess because you're human centric, what kind of skills did people need to have for this very unique, project? I mean, you're building something that's human centric. It can't just be somebody who's like, I just like to be speeds and feeds and I'll put my head down. And it must have really needed to be like a bunch of different aptitudes across everybody on the team. Is that fair?
Yeah, we had a small team, like we call it the if you use the Steve Jobs term, the two pizza box team.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to look at it as, if this were my company and I was running this as a startup venture, who do I need? And staff it accordingly.
Right.
So even though it was run as an engineering stealth project out of our CTO office, I had business development, I had user experience, I had operations, I had UX, I had a lot of different pieces that you would see as part of a whole company or a whole startup venture, not just core engineering. Because if we just had great tech but didn't know how to pitch it, even internally, or market it or sell it or deal with those user experiences, it was not going to be successful, because you had to treat this as, we are a startup trying to get VC funding for a new venture. It just so happens to be we're inside of a big company.
From a psychology standpoint, like when you were going to develop this, like, was there really a consideration of like, what will people believe? What are they comfortable with? Did that have to be considered? And where did that start, if it did?
Yeah, 100%. We started absolutely with the user experience of, what are we trying to accomplish here? And you couldn't start with the tech. I mean, it was the idea of augmented reality that got me excited about ooh, we could create a different experience. But then it became 100% about the experience, what the experience we're trying to create. And what we really wanted to go for is, if I'm here and you're there, can we create that feeling of being together? That feeling when you're in a room together, you're sharing a coffee, you're just catching up, getting to know somebody, building rapport. Can you recreate that experience when you're geographically separated? And audio's not cutting that. Video's not cutting that. It's an improvement for sure, but you're aware that you're not physically together. Can you eliminate that barrier and almost in a way trick your brain into thinking that you are together with that person?
At some point, there's going to be a prototype phase. What were the biggest challenges you had in building the prototype? And was there ever a moment when you thought, "Wow, can we do this?"
The whole startup of the initial thing, like you're trying to sell this idea to your executive team of like, this is awesome and we know exactly what we're trying to do and this is the vision and yes, we can do this. And at the same time thinking like, we don't know if we can do this because nobody's done it before and we think this is true, but until we actually get some people on there and try it, we don't know. So part of it is it's the fake it till you make it. You have to have the excitement and the confidence of this is where we're going and yes, we're going to hit this, no problem. At the same time, you're going in uncharted waters. You just simply don't know. So you're trying to find that balance between bravado and reality and bring your team along on that. And it was interesting. We definitely had some learnings in the process because it is a new user experience. We had some fun little examples that came out in the user testing of when we first started trying the experience on people, that the experience was pretty mind-blowing. People were like, oh my gosh, I feel like this person's here. But we were early stages, so it was bare bones. We didn't have how do you start the call? How do you end the call? It's just, you just have the experience in the middle. So you thrust right into it. And we knew we had something on some of those early user tests where you end the call. And like I said, it was very abrupt and people would literally jump. They'd be like, where'd they go? I was just talking to this hologram in the room and it's just like, they're gone, poof. That's weird. I'm like, okay, we need to add some features here to make that not so abrupt. But it really proved the point of, we did find something different. We did create that feeling of togetherness, because when you hang up a video call, you don't have this, whoa, where'd they go? You know where they went.
Do you remember when you the first day that you looked at what you had and you said, wow, this is what we're supposed to be doing and this is going to be big? Do you remember? Did you have an aha moment?
I did. The end of that first 4-month phase, when we hit our milestone, we spent the last few weeks of that phase right before our milestone was a demo to our executive. And we spent the last few weeks, we were constantly talking to the team of like, we're going for wow. Like we don't want the response of just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like we want wow. And when we rehearsed everything, we had to, like, when they walk in their room, this is the experience they're going to have. And we had an amazing ops lead that's kind of like going through, they're going to sit here and I'm going to bring them water. And then we're going to walk them from here. And we're going to do the tee up story with these ones while these ones are doing the demo. And then we're going to debrief with those ones. Like, look, we scripted everything. So we wanted to curate that experience so you could control it from start to finish. And when our primary executive walked into the demo, put on the headset, did the experience, his response was, holy shit. And that's when we knew, like, we have something here. We got to wow.
I love that this new technology is designed for people to feel like they're in a room together. And when you demoed it, you scripted out every aspect of actually being in a room with the person that you're showing it to. So at the end of the day, we're still people like meeting in a room, checking this out. That is so cool and ironic, and I love it. The release happened in October of 2021, and I think everybody, pretty much has an idea of what they were doing in October of 2021. And it's a little bit more than we had been in October of 2020, but still, depends on how confident you felt in going out. But when it was released during that time, what was the market response and kind of what was the customer reception to the Webex Hologram?
The timing of the world and what was occurring was very interesting in this project. Like we said, we started it way before remote collaboration was on everybody's radar. It was something that certain organizations did it for certain use cases. And during that time, when we were several phases into the project, is when COVID and the global pandemic, and all of a sudden remote collaboration went to the forefront of everyone's mind. And you hate to capitalize on such a negative issue as that, but it was great to be working on a solution to a problem that now became much more apparent to a lot of people. So at the time that we went public in October 2021, everybody was looking at what's the best way for me to do remote collaboration. And for some people, that was simply, hey, we never did video conferencing before, and now we're doing video conferencing, and that's what we need. That's all we need. But for the specific use cases we were going after, when you're really trying to build something with someone on the other side of the world, or you're trying to review something that has some multidimensionality to it, and you need to see not just this piece in relation to that piece, but what does this look inside of that? And how do we have that back and forth conversation as we're looking at the content? Those types of scenarios, it was a game changer to allow people to have an option to have that togetherness, that co-creation experience, and be geographically separated. So it was a solution whose time had come.
Innovation Heroes is proudly produced by SHI, a leading global IT solutions provider dedicated to making life simpler for business and IT professionals. For over 30 years, we've bridged the gap between digital strategy and execution, delivering cutting-edge technology and services to thousands of customers worldwide. Whether you're navigating the cloud, strengthening cybersecurity, or transforming your workplace, SHI is here to help. To learn more, visit shi.com/solvewhat'snext. That's shi.com/solvewhat'snext to embrace the future with stress-free, scalable solutions that you and your people will love. Did you get any anecdotal feedback about people who were just like, wow, it just feels really great to feel like you're in another room with coworkers again? Did you hear any of that back? Do you have any good stories to share there?
Yeah, I think the use cases side was interesting because we tried to keep it pretty limited. We were trying to focus on remote design and remote creation, design, and review. But one of our customer feedbacks that we started getting pretty regularly was more than one company came back and saying they wanted to use this for their C-suite hiring. I thought that was really interesting because the feedback was really around that idea of it. You have to see somebody in person to build rapport. And so a lot of times, a lot of companies, they'll do the C-suite hiring. They might do a screening or a pre-meeting virtually, but then you're paying to fly them on site, meet the team, and really get to know them because you're trying to build trust very quickly. And so it was really interesting to see that more than one company came back to say, hey, that feeling that you get when you're in person with somebody, we're getting that feeling in these holographic conferences. And if we don't have to fly that person there and align schedules perfectly such that we can get everybody on the executive team at the same time, that's huge. That's a huge savings. So I thought that was really interesting to see how, we had one idea of how you're going to use this experience of togetherness and co-presence, but your customers are always going to surprise you with other new and innovative ways of using it.
After you left Cisco, you wrote a book called Cake on Tuesday. Can you explain the title and then talk about some of the lessons that you've learned throughout your career in corporate innovation?
Sure. The full title is Cake on Tuesday, 25 Lessons to Unlock Corporate Innovation. And it is really meant to be a short, easy read that is a synopsis of all my learnings over those, I think it was 8 years of this project. And it started as a bit of just self-reflection. Okay, we're wrapping up, moving on to the next thing, postmortem for the project, what worked, what didn't. And then I just started writing more and more things down and realizing I learned a lot in this process. And if I keep that all to myself, that's kind of selfish. So I bet this is going to help somebody else trying to do some sort of crazy entrepreneurial venture. And maybe they can do things a little bit faster, quicker, easier than me. And that's why it sort of formed itself into a book, if you will. And in hindsight, looking back at something, your perspective is always a bit different than when you're in it, going through it. And the book really broke itself down in 5 sections of 5 lessons each. And the first 3 sections are largely about starting, inertia, persistence, moving the idea forward. How do you unlock that action, which is what led itself into the title. And then the third The fourth section is all about persisting when it gets really hard. Once you're past that buzz and excitement in the beginning and you're just trying to make marginal improvements and claw every inch forward, how do you keep going? And then the fifth section is insights from the rearview mirror, which is, again, those lessons you don't see when you're in it. But looking back, you realize, okay, that was the takeaway I was supposed to have gotten from that process.
Yeah, you mentioned just getting started, and Cisco is a big company, and it's not always easy for big companies to keep that startup mindset. How important was it that they said, yes, we're going to give you some tight deadlines, but for the most part, we do know that you're building this from scratch. Like, how do you keep that startup mindset as your company gets more successful and obviously grows?
Yeah, it really helped having those short phases with a significant deadline at the end of each phase, because it allowed the leadership to say, okay, we're going to get something in this 4 months or 6 months, whatever this phase is. I'm going to see the answer to X. It's going to be yes or it's going to be no. So it gave them something clear enough to say, all right, I can handle funding this project for that period of time with these resources and whatnot. But for us in working on the team, it gave us a clear and guiding milestone to get to of the end of each phase was we're going to live or die by this milestone. And again, you're looking at it like if you're a startup with VC funding, like I'm running out of this current series, can I get the next series funding? And if I don't have my proof point, I'm not going to get that funding. So it really helped keep that startup mentality of we are fighting for life every phase, and we have to prove our worth and that we're getting our accomplishments. And if we miss something or something is wrong or we prove that it's not possible, then we needed a story and we need to pivot for what next and how do we do that. And I think that's what helped it stay alive, because the flip side of having those short phases is I was able to have a lot of freedom within those phases. And that's something I talked to our executive team about of we're trying to do something we've never done before. So it's going to look different than anything we've done before. And some of it is like, you're going to have to trust me a little bit. And I will try to prove why that trust, I'm being trustworthy with that. And then if you trust me for those 4 months, I think I'll have something pretty cool at the end. And when we hit that first milestone, that garnered some trust for the next phase. And then when we hit that milestone, we garnered trust for the next phase. So that allowed us to run it with some more autonomy. When you are going through uncharted waters, doing something that no one's ever done before, there's going to be the naysayers. And there's a point where you have to find that balance between having wisdom and many counselors, but realizing people can't lead where they've never been. So where do you find the balance between the two and being careful who you're listening to? And sometimes you have to be your own cheerleader and kind of move yourself forward through that, bring yourself through that process. So there were a lot of times, I would say, when things got a little dicey and I wasn't sure, but part of that being an umbrella and a shield for your team is protecting them from the noise and allowing them to move forward. And you're passing on the confidence of, look, we're going to get there. You might not know how you're going to get there, but you're passing on the confidence with your team. We're going to find a way because we did it before. We're going to do it again. And you don't have to bring them into the details of every little thing and every little threat of loss of funding, every little hiccup. You have to shield your team from that noise so they can continue to execute. And that's part of your job as the leader, is figure out how you're going to navigate that path.
Yeah, nothing shuts down innovation quite as quickly as the fear of taking a chance, right? I'd like to ask, your opinion on the future. I mean, I see, that people are talking about in the future, whenever that might be, that, there might not be a need to have giant sports stadiums anymore because, everybody can just experience the exact same thing. And like you're sitting next to your buddy at an event and he might be in one place and you're in another. I mean, can it get that great? Can it get that big and that great?
We're going to get real philosophical if we go down this path, to be honest, because you start getting into, can the experience be better? I mean, already just sitting at home on your couch watching a football game, like you have a much better vantage point than you do if you're at the game. There's so many advantages to that. And you can see the replay and you can get the close up and all that. Mm-hmm. But people still spend a lot of money to get tickets to go to a ball game, to be frozen and stand out in the crowd and hungry and see your feet sticking to the floor and whatever the case. There's something magical about when people come together. So despite being in the technology space, I don't think we will ever replace physical human connection. I think there is a reason that we have stadiums and crowds, and there's something about when you bring people together. I mean, there's science behind this about you have enough people in the same space, they start syncing their breathing and heart rates, and especially when people do something like singing together or chanting at a game. Like there's stuff there that you cannot replicate with technology, at least right now. And I don't know if we ever will, quite frankly. I think there's a reason humans desire to be around other humans, and I think that will always be there.
I just want to say thank you so much for being with us again, Elizabeth. For listeners interested in learning more about who you are or would like to reach out, what's the best place to find you?
Sure. I have a website now, elizabethbieniek.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Elizabeth Bieniek. I post there most frequently. I recently started an Instagram and X accounts, both at Cake on Tuesday. And of course, you can find the book, 25 Lessons to Unlock Corporate Innovation. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you find a book.
Awesome. Well, you summed it up way better than I could have. So I just want to say a big thank you to Elizabeth for sharing her story and her innovation philosophy. Elizabeth's new book, Cake on Tuesday, 25 Lessons to Unlock Corporate Innovation, is out now. And until next time, keep innovating, stay ahead of the curve. For Innovation Heroes and SHI, I'm Ed McNamara. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.